Here's the story, Sonny Jim, and I swear every word is true. To a Roman star on a desert night in a Cadillac of golden light, on the floor by a truck stop door, he left a bride.
Bushranger. Noun. A person who lives by robbing travellers and isolated homesteads in the bush. A person who drives a hard and sometimes dishonest bargain. New Holland, better known now as Australia, was discovered in 1606 by Dutch navigator and colonial governor Willem Janszoon. Deciding the land inhospitable after losing 10 of his men to various shore expeditions, Janszoon soon left, and word spread quickly of this new, mysterious land in the south. Soon, the English would arrive and James Cook would charter the land, planting the seeds of colonization. Overseas, the American Revolution had seen the end of English control over the US, and the English now needed a new place to send its prisoners. On the 24th of August 1783, a proposal for establishing a settlement in New South Wales was made. Originally, the colony was only intended for American Loyalists, Chinese, and South Sea Islanders. But in 1784, it was amended to include convicts, and on the 13th of May 1787, the First Fleet would embark on its journey to Australia, holding 1,530 people between 11 ships. On the 26th of January 1788, Port Jackson had been officially settled, and the colony of convicts had begun. As the land developed and the people grew, some would refuse the modern life, turn to crime and Australia's wild bushland to survive. These people are known as Bushrangers, and today we're going to be talking about the first known Bushranger of Australia, the trendsetter himself, Black Caesar. Everyone knows of Ned Kelly and his iconic armour. Some know Mad Dog Morgan, and some even know of Martin Cash. But these days, not many know the story of Black Caesar, and that's because there's not that much to know. Black Caesar didn't do any big noteworthy heist or charismatically charm his way through his robberies. In fact, he found it hard hunting Australia's animals and living off the land. Black Caesar is known simply for being the first guy to say "fuck this," as well as being one of the first men of African descent to step foot in Australia. John Black Caesar was born in 1763 and is speculated to have come from Madagascar. He lived a life of slavery as a plantation worker until he managed to escape to England, where he lived as a servant in the parish of St. Paul. Before long, Caesar would be facing life as a slave yet again, as he was caught thieving 240 shillings. For his crime, he was to be sent to the new prison colony of Australia with the First Fleet. Convict men were put to labour building roads, bridges, courthouses, hospitals, and other public buildings. Some would work on government farms, while educated convicts may have been given jobs such as record keeping for the government administration. Caesar was described by officials as a muscular, large man suitable for calculated hard labour, but lacking in intellect. At this time, the colony had many troubles trying to set up farms and agriculture, as they had not yet adjusted to the land. This caused food shortages throughout the colony, and Governor Arthur Phillip made the decision to cut the convicts' rations. Hunger was rife throughout the land, and many had resorted to crime to feed themselves. Black Caesar, like so many others, was eventually caught thieving and was subsequently punished. 2 weeks later, Caesar had decided he would be a convict no more and made his escape. Bringing some provisions, armed with a cooking pot and a musket he'd nicked off of a local marine, John Black Caesar hightailed it into the bush. But things would not be so easy for Caesar. He was in a land he knew little about, with strange creatures whose mere description seemed unreal. Living off the land was not John's forte, and he knew this well. He began skulking around the outskirts of Port Arthur with a loaded musket, stealing any food he could find and robbing people in their own gardens. Eventually, he was captured and brought before Governor Phillip, who was now in a dilemma of what to do with the man. On one hand, he was a skilled and valuable labourer, but on the other, food was already scarce enough in the colony. Philip ultimately decided Caesar was to work at the Garden Island fetters, where on top of his regular rations he was given vegetables to satiate his mighty hunger. Over time, due to his hard work and good behaviour, Caesar was trusted to work without restraints. This had proved a mistake on the government's part, as Caesar immediately plotted another escape. Employees were ferried to the island via canoe, which were left in the water as they ran various tasks. Over a few nights, John once again gathered some provisions, a cooking pot, a musket with ammunition, and stole a canoe, paddling his way to freedom. Caesar would only be free for a fortnight, unfortunately. He survived the 2 weeks in the bush by intimidating groups of aboriginals with his musket and stealing any provisions that they left behind. This worked even without ammunition until the musket was lost in an attempt to stash it. Without the musket, Black Caesar could not sustain himself and eventually turned himself in after being attacked by a mob of aboriginals who were angry at him for his thefts. To his surprise, Caesar faced no punishment and was even gifted a pardon on behalf of the governor. Governor Philip had sent Caesar and 100 other prisoners to Norfolk Island in an attempt to develop another settlement and take strain off of the mainland. He worked there for some time before eventually returning to Sydney and taking up his bush antics yet again. Eventually he was captured and severely flogged for his crimes, but his spirit was not affected, as he is recorded saying, "All that will not make me better." Caesar did nothing of note until late 1795, where Caesar and a party he'd briefly joined were attacked by an Aboriginal resistance group led by Pemulwuy, who'd at this point gained a massive bounty on his head. Caesar is reported to have seriously injured Pemulwuy, and some of the local residents had dubbed him a hero. But still, after his many escapes, after being dubbed a hero by some and a menace by others, Caesar was still a convict and a slave in the eyes of the government. So later that year, he rounded up fellow runaways, stole weapons and provisions, and they all hightailed it into the bush as outlaws. The next year, on the 29th of January 1796, a bounty of 5 gallons of rum was placed on Caesar's head. And on the 14th of February that same year, only 16 days after the bounty was put on him, a man named John Wimbo and his unnamed accomplice tracked Caesar at Liberty Plains, now known as Strathfield. Upon seeing the men, Caesar took aim with his musket, but before he was able to pull the trigger, John Wimbo fired and hit Caesar directly in the chest. Caesar was carried to a nearby hut, where he later died from his wounds. He was survived by his daughter, Mary Ann Fisher. John Black Caesar was a man who'd fought rigorously against the chains that binded him. It's worth noting that he's not reported to have killed or harmed anyone during his robberies and thefts. This was a man who'd constantly been shackled and constantly flipped the bird to his captors and tried to take freedom by the balls. And that is why we should remember John Black Caesar, the first bushranger. Thus ended a man who certainly during his life could never have been estimated at more than one remove above the brute, and who had given more trouble than any other convict in the settlement. David Collins, Colony Judge Advocate, 1796. Thank you for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, give it a like. If you didn't, dislike it. If I got any facts wrong, please tell me in the comments. And if you want a video on a bushranger, well, tell me which one, and maybe I'll do it. I'm going to do some more videos about bushranger stuff, and hopefully people enjoy them. So thanks again. Bye.